All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to week 6 in CE 155. For the final time, Chef Suzanne and I welcome you to another fine live session here in CE 155. And it also happens to be the final and last session for the class in CE 155. This class will no longer be around, so hopefully everybody out there has put in sufficient effort to get through the class. If not, then we'll have to make some other arrangements for you to keep you going within the program. But other than that, make sure that you take the end of course survey. It is worth extra credit, which will give your grade a nice boost at the end. If anyone out there is concerned about their well-being, I guess you could call it, within the course, certainly feel free to reach out to myself or to Chef Suzanne, and we're going to do everything we can to help you and get you through the class, because there is still time, so don't give up. Keep going. It can be done, and we are here as your support. So let's do it. Let's make this happen. It is our goal to see everybody get through the class, and we're here. We got your back, man, just like they say in the kitchen. So week 5, everybody. Chef Suzanne, how was week 5?
It was a very good week. I think the biggest issue that I typically see in week 5 is that students will mark the workflow but not adjust the workflow. So that was basically the second part of this assignment, is not just to track your workflow, but if things are in the wrong position. So if you've got a piece of equipment that's kind of way out of, out in left field somewhere, to not just identify that your workflow is kind of wonky, but to adjust that wonkiness and then submit. But I think for the most part, they did a really nice job. I think how, setting up the kitchen successfully last week, week 4, definitely helps this week kind of go along. So I thought they did a really nice job.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. Great news. Operational flow, and Chef Suzanne and I were just touching on this just briefly a few minutes ago. The operational flow is such a critical issue in the restaurant industry that people don't think about. We were talking about footsteps, and the other night I took an obnoxious amount, and Chef Suzanne today was talking about how many footsteps that she had to take, and within the kitchen that she was working in. So these are things that need to be thought through before you even put any equipment into your kitchen, because otherwise, like they say, your dogs get tired by the end of the shift, and you don't want to have a tired staff at the end of the night, because that's what leads to a dirty kitchen and poor closures. Poor closures in the restaurant industry are a nightmare. That's when they break the kitchen down improperly at nighttime. So the morning crew, when they come in, they start the day behind, and it just kind of tumbles from there. So it's something to be critical of. So good job, everybody, on week 5. We appreciate all the work and the effort. So let's take a look at week 6 in CE 155. Remember, please take that end of course survey for Chef Suzanne and I. We really appreciate the information. It's what is used to help the program grow. And I know Chef Suzanne feels the same way, but when we were younger chefs, we would become a little bit concerned by, if somebody was to say something negative about something we were doing, and that's called ego. But the older you get, the wiser you become, and the more you begin to listen. And if you had a challenge with a particular lesson, you weren't able to pick something up, or whatever the case may have been, we appreciate that. We appreciate that feedback, because it's really what helps this program grow and get better. So thank you in advance for taking the time, and don't forget that is extra credit. Everybody, I don't know about you guys out there, but I need a little extra credit. So if everybody could do that, it'll really help your grade. All assignments, including makeup work, are due no later than this Sunday, May the 12th, by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. We cannot accept assignments on Monday morning because that puts Chef Suzanne way behind for the next block. So everybody, please be respectful. Get your work done. Get it in on time. So all assignments this week, including any makeup work and any assignments that you may have missed from prior classes, are due no later than Sunday night, May 12th at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Do I need to repeat that, Chef Suzanne?
I will repeat it. Bring it
Okay.
on. I'm ready. I'm ready to see all
Let me
these
hear it. Let me hear it.
assignments.
Let me hear it.
Yeah, bring it on.
Let me hear it. Let me hear it.
Yep.
Okay.
Sunday night, 11:59 p.m.
May 12th.
May 12th. Sorry, I forgot that part. Everything. If you missed an assignment, if you got makeup assignments, if you didn't do so great and you want a better grade, turn this stuff in. If you had, that's what I'm here for. Dump it on me. I'm ready. I'm ready.
That's it. That's what it's all about. And so thank you, everybody, for being respectful of that. We really appreciate it. And Chef Suzanne and I really enjoy hearing from our prior students to see how their success is going within the industry. And it also serves as a motivational factor for other students who are trying to get through culinary school. So by all means, stay in touch with us. Drop us a line and say, hey, Chef, this is what I'm doing now. This is how I'm using what I've learned and learned at Escoffier. So please, keep in contact with us. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, you have to maintain your attendance through the end of the course. The course officially ends next Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. So please maintain your attendance. When you don't maintain your attendance, it takes time away for us that we would normally be focusing on students who are struggling. We're looking for you instead. So please make sure that you post attendance. Once again, all assignments are due no later than Sunday, May the 12th at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. No exceptions. Ain't gonna happen because we have to get everything in, please. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for adhering to that policy. Right now, we're gonna take a little trip back in time. We're gonna take a little reflection over the prior 6 weeks, or 5 weeks, I'm sorry, and which will lead up to your final assignment. So taking a look at what we did in week 1, we discussed inspirations in the forum, and I think there was some great information that was shared. And I know Chef Suzanne loves seeing on the inside of people's heads their inspirations, and so do I. I think it's great information. So we talked about your inspirations, and then we also created the station map, and that was slide 1 in the facility layout tool. And my question is to everybody, would you create it differently now? Now that you've learned a little bit more, would things change in your head about what you did in week 1? And traditionally, Chef Suzanne and I have found out that yes, it's true as you change with the course. Does anybody have any comments on week 1?
I'll jump in because I absolutely have noticed that especially when week 4 comes around, and week 5 in particular too, that what you thought you needed on week 1 and what you actually, when you're setting up your kitchen and you put everything in and go, oh, wait a minute, I don't have a grill in my burger station, or I don't have a cooler in my burger station. And so all of a sudden I see coolers pop in or equipment pop in that wasn't in, which is wonderful. That's a great thing that you didn't realize you needed it in week 1, and then you're working on your kitchen and boom, there it is. Because you just didn't realize that you would need that table or that sink where you put it. And so absolutely, these assignments have evolved their whole layouts from week 1 to where they are in week 5. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think part of the bigger picture is too, within the food service industry, regardless of where you go and regardless of where you work, you need to make sure that you keep an open mind, because things are going to constantly morph and change themselves from your original ideas to what ends up on the plate, from your original concept to when you open the front door, from the original way that you think the equipment should lay out. It's all going to change. And if you remain open-minded, you can become very successful within this industry. It's the people that remain closed-minded and don't change and morph themselves with success that struggle. So just some words of advice from an old dog. That's all I am at this point. All right, ladies and gents, week 2. We talked about finding the right location, and which I think is one of the more fascinating things. We also discussed during that week that we need to start separating ourselves from what we want and start understanding what our business needs. And we talked a lot about some financial information. We shared about numbers, how to determine how much money you can pay for rent. We also talked about demographics during that week. And, we talked about professionals, empty nesters, families, millennials, and Gen X, Y, Z, A, and B. They're all out there, and we all have different target markets based on our concept. We're not all after the same people. So we talked about that. And then we also talked about the fact that 10% of your monthly gross can go to, or should go to, rent, and no more than 10%. So that was a really valuable week. That's always been real changing for me. I drive by locations all the time, and I think to myself, perfect, that's the one I want. And then all of a sudden reality strikes, and I understand that that's the one I want, but my next potential restaurant isn't necessarily, well suited for that location. So remember that, and keep that in your mind. Chef Suzanne, any comments on week 2?
Kind of along what you were just saying, or you may see a building, and I think that's where the kind of the second half of the assignment from week 2 comes into play. So you found what you thought, or you think, oh, I drive by this building, it would be perfect. But then when you actually kind of step back and look for those advantages and disadvantages and go, oh, wait a minute, there's no parking, there's construction, there's, there's all these negatives, and that all of a sudden what looked like driving by the perfect, gorgeous building, maybe not so much once you start looking at those pros and cons, those advantages and disadvantages. So that's why I think that particular assignment is so.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think that's a fantastic assignment, and I learned a lot, and I still, every time we teach that class, I learn something new from doing it. Moving on to week 3, that was a really interesting look, and I know that's my partner's favorite week, because week 3 we begin the process of designing our front of the house, and we also worked with the mood board that week. That's really the first time that we get to see what's going on inside your head as far as your concept, and it really helps us to understand the direction that you're going in. And I think, and I also know, that's probably the biggest change that our students go through, because they have a concept in their head, but once it appears on paper, it's not the same as it was when it was upstairs. So, and that's the way it goes in culinary arts, because I can't tell you how many wonderful dishes and amazing dishes to put me on the cover of Gourmet magazine I've developed in my head, and then all of a sudden I get them out and put them on the plate, and I'm like, I wouldn't feed it to my dog. It's so that's, Chef Suzanne and I over the past 5 weeks have really stressed collaboration to everybody. Share your ideas, communicate. You should always share all of your ideas with at least 5 other industry professionals. And by the time you get done and you come back to yourself, you're going to have a completely different idea that's going to be much better. And you're going to be loaded for success at that point. So we also talked during week 3 about the basic design areas for the front of the house. We talked about the entrance, the waiting area, the full service bar, dining room, restrooms. We took a look at some pictures of some nasty restrooms. Some things you just can't unsee, you know what I mean? And then the mood board during week 3, I think we also saw some really cool stuff. I think there's some really creative students that have an amazing ability to lay out and design. Chef Suzanne, what's your comment about week 3?
Well, you are correct. I absolutely adore week 3. It is the first chance to, some people have been dreaming or thinking about their own business for many years. And it's the first chance that they get to really start planning it and laying it out. And those that really haven't thought much about it, it's their first chance to go, well, maybe this isn't something I'd ever really thought about, but now I'm thinking about it. It's also when we see changes from, I thought I wanted a great big restaurant, but now, hey, chef, can I redo it? I think I just want a little bistro, or I think I want to go from a restaurant to a food truck. And this is when I see a lot of changes in development of what the original thought was versus something that actually ends up in the assignment. Big changes in week 3.
Big changes. It's just amazing how these things, we deal with issues in our personal lives, and we get stressed, and then we talk to somebody else and we feel better about it. But then it's also the same thing in the restaurant industry. So collaboration, getting those ideas out, like Chef Suzanne was talking about, that's the road to success right there. And we're not just talking about facility layout, we're also talking about menu design, personnel issues, all these kind of issues. When I have challenges, when I'm in the kitchen, I turn to other people and I say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think the solution is? And they give great feedback. And sometimes I have to talk to 2 or 3 people, and then I realize all of a sudden, bingo, gotcha. I know exactly what's going on. I can fix it. And because it took me a lot of years to realize that I don't know much. So keep an open mind. Week 4, ladies and gentlemen, we got into our kitchens, and I think that was a really profound week as chefs and soon-to-be chefs. We learned an awful lot of information about our kitchens. We talked about the sizes that are appropriate. We talked about how many square feet you need per customer. Then we talked about how to develop how many square feet your kitchen should be based on 5 square feet per dining seat. Then we also talked about before we design our kitchen, we need to have a fully complete concept. And then we also talked about the fact that after we have our concept, then we can design our menu so we can get an idea of our foodstuffs, and then we can start designing our kitchens. So there's a couple of steps that you have to take before you can just put a kitchen together. We also talked about the fact that the average kitchen in the United States is about 250 square feet. So that's very important to remember. Or not 250, or $250 per square feet, and which gets very expensive. So remember that when you do go to do a kitchen, it is a huge initial investment. And oftentimes, if you don't think it through properly, like anything else in life, the consequences are tremendous. And in this situation, it could cost you your entire business. So it's very, very important. We also talked about the essential parts to a kitchen, the back door, so we can receive our deliveries. We talked about the fact we need a service area for our wait staff so they're not cruising around the kitchen. We talked about storage areas and garde manger and walk-ins and a hotline and all that kind of good stuff. Chef Suzanne, what was your perspective on week 4?
I think week 4 is interesting because that's the week where, again, you think you've got it all figured out, and then it sometimes takes, kind of like you're talking about, like networking, it sometimes takes a fresh set of eyes, and that's where a lot of times I come in and look at it and go, well, this looks good, but if this person's cooking this, say they've got a burger on the grill, and then they're done with it, where's it going to go after that? Where are they going to, there's no tables, there's no counters, it's just a grill. So where is it going to get set down to get the fries? Where's the plates going to go? And then where are the toppings going to be stored? So the lettuce and tomatoes, you're going to need something cold, you're going to need a table. So sometimes it just takes somebody pointing that out, and you go, oh yeah, I need to have something, somewhere to put the buns, somewhere to put the plates. Need to have some refrigeration for the burger before, and then also the items after that burger is made. So it's where a lot of that comes in to play with that fresh perspective and set of eyes. Absolutely. So that's why I like week 4 too. I like all these weeks.
Great feedback. And that's all such essential. We also really got in hand sinks and garbage cans that week. And, we say that with a smile on our face, but that's oftentimes what operators forget. They forget the important details. And then the health department shows up and they say, can you show me your hand sinks? And you're like, what hand sink? Right? And then next thing you know, you're paying a very expensive plumber. Nakia, what's your question?
Well, not really a question, just a comment on what you were saying about just another perspective. I felt like my layout was pretty good as far as having all the equipment that I needed. Mm-hmm. But when I got feedback from Chef Jackie, she was like, it looks great, but your cooks don't have anywhere to stand. So you need to open up the floor plan and make sure everybody has enough room to cook, or it's not going to work.
Yeah, that's a great comment. And that's absolutely the reason for doing the exercise, so you can get a better understanding. Yeah, great comment, Nakia. Thank you very much for sharing that. We talked about this during week 1. A lot of people get into this class and they think to themselves, well, I don't plan on opening a restaurant, or I don't plan on, doing X, Y, and Z. However, regardless of where you go and what you do within this industry, at some point in time, you're going to refer back to this information. Because just like Nakia said right there, somebody might share a layout of a new restaurant with her, and she's going to look at it and she's going to reflect upon CE 155 and think, hey, these people have nowhere to stand. And you probably just saved that operator their business. So you will utilize what you learn in here. I promise you. Yeah. So great job, everybody, on week 4. And now we're moving into last week, week 5, right? We talked about the operational flow. And we also talked about restaurant exteriors and how restaurant exteriors can oftentimes become tools for marketing. And it also sets the guest anticipation of what their dining experience is going to be like. We gave you a couple of tips about signage, making sure that it's readable and visible. I've seen a lot of great signs for restaurants, and I look at them, and I could not tell you what the name of the restaurant is, because the font is like wait, just say it, okay? And you also want to come up with a name that's easily rememberable, or recognizable, I should say, so people can remember it. And when they want to go back to your place. My wife is heading out to dinner tonight, and she's asked me 12 times today the name of Bottega Michelangelo, because the name is so big you can't remember it, right? And it's like, write it down. But that's and you don't want to use the acronym. You don't want to call it BM. I mean, that's not a good thing for a restaurant. So come up with a name that is easy to remember for your guests. Let's take a look at some of the information from week 5. The operational flow is so critical in a restaurant. I help out at a resort, and they did not do an operational flow chart when they put their kitchen together. And in the middle of the bakery, they installed a new entrance exit to the main kitchen. And unfortunately, the bakery tables are only about 30 inches wide. And so every time the bakers are there working and somebody has to get through that area, and it's generally me, it just does not work. Everybody has to stop what they're doing and get out of the way and allow that person to pass. The dish area as well, it's the same thing. You cannot get more than 2 people in front of the dish table where you put your glassware and silverware. And it's just a huge bottleneck back there. As a result, a tremendous amount of broken china and glassware and a lot of silverware and other smallwares ends up in the garbage can. So it's a very costly mistake that these folks did. Please remember how critical all this information. There's Flo up there in the corner. She's just hanging out. Please make sure that you think this through, because it's also a huge safety issue when it comes to operational flow. For those of you that don't know it, workman's compensation insurance traditionally runs about 2.5 to 3.5% of your revenues, and it can be very costly, not of your revenues, but of your payroll. And it can be extremely costly because those rates go up after you have accidents in your kitchen. The people slip, they fall. If you bump into somebody when they're utilizing a chef's knife, or if they're carrying a hot object. I had a guy that spilled 5 gallons of 350-degree oil right down his chest, and it was a nasty nightmare, and it cost a lot of money in the long run. So take the time to do it. Chef Suzanne?
It's so funny we're talking about this today. I mean, it's not funny somebody got burned. That's awful.
But it's true. What were you saying earlier?
I was just working in a kitchen today. I was doing some volunteer work, and I was working in a kitchen I've never been in, and there are some amazing parts of the kitchen. And then there are some really bad parts to the kitchen, the way that it's set up. And it was just set up. There are certain things that were very poorly placed. Their tilt skillet is so close to their oven that the oven was on 350 because we were baking some baked ziti. but we were also using the tilt skillet. And so every time I have a blister, I got like a bruisey, or, you know, I smushed it, first of all, repeatedly. And then I burnt it because every time I'd go to turn the handle on the tilt skillet, there was no way to avoid it. I would literally rub my knuckles on a door from a 350-degree oven every turn of the tilt skillet. And I said, why is this so close together? And there's nowhere else to move it. It was just so poorly set up where those pieces of equipment are, that moving those two is going to be quite a bit of work to move, to find somewhere else to put those particular pieces of equipment. Just very poorly designed. And so that's where knowing how to think about where things are placed and the flow, you know, and Gali, you were just talking about, there was also an area where in order to get through, everyone that was in the line had to get it, like, okay, I need to come through this cart, and they have to just stop what they're doing and walk, and then they'll go through the cart, then they have to walk as a group back, and it just, everyone stops working because there's no walkways in certain areas. So the flow is so important. Placement of equipment is crucial. I got hurt, I really did. I mean, I'm going to survive, I'll be okay, but it really sucked.
I mean, fortunately, you're an experienced culinarian, but could you imagine a young culinarian, you know, pulling a sheet pan of bacon out that's filled with bacon grease, and you're unwinding that wheel, and then, you know, next thing you know, it turns into be a real serious accident. And everybody also needs to take a moment and think to themselves, every time your crew has to step to the side to allow somebody to pass, you're paying them to do nothing. And it may seem like it's only for a few moments, but when you add those moments together as a group, it becomes a significant amount of time. And if you're paying your kitchen staff $1,000 an hour to work, which is a pretty normal figure, depending on the size of your staff, it's a lot of money by the end of the year that you could have used for something else. So operational flow, it doesn't seem like a big issue. It's major. Yes. And it messes up efficiency, operations, safety hazard, does a lot of damage to equipment, because I'm sure as you were turning the wheel on the tilt skillet, you're banging up against the oven, and you know, you pay $10,000 for a pair of double-deck convection ovens. It's expensive. So take that lesson to the bank and remember. So taking a look at some additional reflection items here. We talked about how did this class change your perspective of restaurant food truck design? What was the key ingredient you take from this class? Does anybody want to share? Anybody? Crickets? Crickets? Yeah. The biggest thing I took from this class was prepare, plan, and be open-minded. When I go through this class, that's exactly what I learn each time. And, you know, the old Boy Scouts, you know, thing where they talk about being prepared for anything, and that's really, really important. And I think we pick up on that from this class. So stuff to take to the bank, please remember. All right, ladies and gents, rolling on to week 6.
I will jump in real quick, though, because I know you said some things that even if you're not going to open your own business, how are these relevant? You know, how is this going to come in handy? I was, like I said, I was in a kitchen today, very new. It was a very new kitchen. Some great things going on in the kitchen. But when it was designed by someone else, they did not put in one of the most important things in a kitchen, deep fryers. They have no deep fryers. That is a big expense, and it's going to require a lot of adjustment when they finally get it. So the person that's running it now, she's going to have to be the one to be planning all the changes and trying to come up with the money to purchase deep fryers. But she's not the one that designed the kitchen. Someone else did. But yet it's now her problem, her responsibility to fix that issue. And, you know, so she had nothing to do with the original planning, but it's in her lap now. So just because you may not be the one originally doing it doesn't mean you're not going to be coming in next to have to fix it.
Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting that you say that. My experience over the last 38, 39 years in kitchens is traditionally the people that design the kitchen are an architect in an office and have very little culinary experience. Hey, I worked in the, yeah, I used to work in the kitchen when I went to college. And, and that's about the extent of their experience. And next thing you know, they're designing your environment. So don't let someone else do it. Take responsibility for your environment and make sure that it is proper. Apply the stuff that you've learned in this class, and it will help you out. So great comments, Chef Suzanne. Ladies and gents, moving forward, week 6 in CE 155. And yes, that was the last time that we will say week 6 in CE 155, because as we mentioned at the beginning of the class, this class is going bye-bye. Hasta luego ain't gonna happen no more. So that means between now and Sunday night, May the 12th at 11:59 p.m., you need to get all of your work in, including makeup assignments. Chef Suzanne and I are here to make sure that that happens, and we are here to provide you with the support should you need it. We would like to see everybody pass this class, and it can be done. It just takes a little bit of effort, and you can make it happen. Let's take a look at this week's class page, or assignment page rather. Using the information you have learned about your concept over the last 5 weeks, answer the following questions. Remember to use your design and layout related ideas. Okay, so we just went through the reflection part of this assignment, and now you need to utilize the reflection that we have been talking about. Any questions about that so far? Just have to make an editorial change here. Okay, we're almost there. Hang on.
I will emphasize while you are editing that when it comes to this week's assignment, definitely make sure that your answers to these questions are pertaining and relevant to this course, things we've been over in this course. So your answers should focus on station map and equipment and layout, front of house, back of house, workflow. So these questions that Chef is going to be going over, yes, worrying about labor and your menus, those are all very important. But for these 4 questions, for these 4 questions, the answers need to be based on things we did in this course.
Great point. Thank you for sharing that. And as well, I know that we're not all poets and English majors and everything else. However, when you write the answers to the questions, please use proper English and proper punctuation. And it is a direct reflection upon you as a professional, the way that you communicate. And it's a great habit to begin now and start working on it. I am not the most fluent person on paper, and I have made quite a few grammatical errors in my time, some that I deeply regret that I don't want to get into right now, but I don't want that to happen to anybody else, so please begin to profess as a professional. Name 3 things you can do to make your business flow more efficiently. This can be anything from organizing your space to buying different pieces of equipment. I know that Chef Suzanne has provided some amazing feedback to all of you over the past 5 weeks. Now is when you apply that feedback. Imagine your sales are 50% of what you anticipated. What layout or design changes can you make to decrease cost and accommodate slower sales? This is something that happens in the restaurant industry. We all open the front door and anticipate this rush of people knocking through the door. But the reality is we do go through slow periods, just like life. There's great times and there's bad times, and you need to be prepared. You need to have a contingency plan. So based on that, what changes would you make? Imagine your sales are double what you anticipated. Every operator's dream. What changes are you going to make? What layout or design changes will you make? All of this is based on the information that Chef Suzanne has told you in your feedback over the last 5 weeks. Finally, what do you see as your biggest obstacle in executing your menu in its current design? What can you do to fix this? I think in week 1, we did that station set up and we listed 5 menu items. Are those 5 menu items still applicable now in week 5 after learning everything that we have learned over the past 5 weeks? Chef Suzanne?
So with that particular question, I think that's probably the hardest question. So that's where you actually kind of have to take a step back and think, what did you maybe change from, so let's say maybe you had, burgers and fries and chicken tenders. And now that you've set up your kitchen, what is going to be the biggest problem? Maybe once you got it all planned out and you got your kitchen all set up, you realize you don't have anywhere to put a dish machine and a walk-in cooler. So which one of those might be your biggest issue? So you might say, okay, I really need to have a walk-in cooler. I'm planning on being pretty busy selling these menu items, or maybe I don't have any reach-in coolers. So what is the biggest issue? So when it's talking about menu, it's not talking about, maybe don't sell burgers, sell grilled chicken sandwiches instead. It's not talking about those kind of changes to your menu. It's talking about what kind of changes in the layout, or maybe the station map, or maybe you need additional equipment. Maybe, like I said, you got this all done and went, oh, wait a minute, I don't have a grill. I think I'd rather grill my burgers. So that's going to be a big problem. So think about all of the things we've done in this class: the station map, the equipment list, the front of house layout. So maybe the front of house is your biggest problem. Maybe you only planned on 25 seats, but now that you're really getting involved in this, you really wish you had a larger dining room. So maybe that is your biggest obstacle, is that you're going to need a much larger dining room. So it's pertaining to your concept, your business, your menu items. What do you think is going to be the biggest problem in preparing those items in the way that you've got everything set up now? I feel like it could be worded a little more thorough. So that's me telling you more thoroughly. That's what you need to do for that question. And questions 2 and 3, when you're looking at 50% of what you anticipated, right? Nobody wants that to happen, but like Chef said, it can happen. And 50% double what you anticipated, that sounds like a great problem to have, right? Bringing in all that extra business, but what if you're not ready for it, right? And all of a sudden you get all these extra people coming into your business, and then they get there and you're not prepared for them, and then they're going to go away, and then all of a sudden your business is bad, not good, right? So how are you going to, what changes? So maybe, again, maybe you need more seating, or you need more equipment. What are the equipment that you need? How would you make these changes in your dining room or your kitchen? So just be thinking about those in these answers. You don't have to write a story. I don't want to read a novel. I like to read, but I don't want to read a novel. So get to the point. Share with me your thoughts on these. You know your layout in your kitchen better than I do. So tell me what you think is going to make it successful. What have you learned? This is basically where you take everything you've learned and everything you know and answer some questions. Sorry, I got a little wordy. I'm a little tired. I can say I got wordy. I'm sorry.
That was wonderful. I thought it was beautiful. I as a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to give you a Grammy for that. That was good. That was good. That was very well said. And I think that really added some clarification. Please remember, everybody, to write in proper English in 1 to 2 sentence answers. It can be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but don't get into a novel if need be. And also, when submitting this assignment, don't forget to include a 1 to 2 sentence summary of your concept for Chef Suzanne to understand.
Right, that is a super easy 10% to your grade. Just by putting in that concept summary that you have now utilized every single week. Boom. 10%.
You know what else you can do to bump your grade? Do the end of course survey. Yeah, that'll help. And that's easy. Ladies and gents, let's take a look at a couple of examples regarding these questions. And I think Chef Suzanne can certainly help clarify this a little bit. Name 3 things you can do to make your business flow more efficiently. These are some acceptable answers. These answers are also posted on your class page. Right down underneath the assignment, you'll see week 6 presentation. Some things that would be acceptable thought processes, but don't do plagiarism, because Chef Suzanne's pretty good at catching on to that. So the size of the kitchen space should be altered. I would replace the 6-burner stove so you could change out some equipment. The bar area could be relocated near the entrance. So these are a couple of ideas that might be acceptable for that first question. The second question, imagine 50% your sales are 50% of what you anticipated. So you're not getting enough business through the door. You've really slowed down, right? The dining room would be redesigned so that during slower times, one server could accommodate guests. The layout would be altered to allow easier access, additional refrigeration to the hotline area to reduce footsteps. So these are some things that you could consider doing for the second question. For the third question, imagine your sales are double what you anticipated. What layout or design changes would you make? Add additional 2-tops, right? So you could add smaller tables in there to accommodate more guests and give you some more flexibility. Develop a second server bus area, which would help your service staff operate more effectively. Purchasing a warming unit to hold prepared food so you're not having to do as much a la carte cooking. So those are some thoughts that you could apply to this, this question. The fourth question, what do you see as the biggest obstacle, right? Holding an adequate amount of fresh greens. Maybe you don't have enough refrigeration space to accommodate all of your mise en place, right? That's a pretty common problem in our industry. The dish area needs to be expanded to accommodate. Very common. So what we're trying to get across, maybe you have one particular area within your kitchen that isn't sized properly. Maybe your prep area isn't big enough. Maybe it's too big and you need to make your hotline bigger. Think it through. The answer's there. Purchase additional speed racks to provide a cooling area for cakes and pies. Maybe that's, if you're doing a bakery, maybe that's an issue that could really resolve a lot of situations. Chef Suzanne, did I miss anything on there?
I don't think so. I almost think that in particular, like I said, I think question 4 is probably not necessarily, I wouldn't say hard, but it's just the one you have to kind of think the most about. So I almost think that maybe your layout is the first draft. So if you were to make a second draft and really start to elaborate more on what you've already done for your front of house, your back of house, what changes would you make? What one thing would be, if you could only pick one thing that you could do to make your layout better, what would it be? And I think that's probably the best way to think of that one.
Very well said. Sometimes we like to let things proof, so to speak, in the kitchen. And if we can let things braise or stew, you could also say that. You can certainly fill this assignment out once and then revamp it the second day. It'll be twice as good because those, they seem shallow questions on the surface, but they're actually deep questions that require some reflection upon what you have learned over the last 5 weeks. Well, ladies and gents, we are near the end of our final CE 155. A couple of things that I want to leave you with before you head out. Make sure that you let Chef Suzanne and I know about your successes. We are here for your support, even though we're not going to be your instructors in this particular class. If you need support or help in any way, certainly reach out. We are here for you. There is plenty of time for those of you that are struggling in this course to finish. We want to help you. We are here to help you succeed. We just need to hear from you. We've reached out to a number of you and haven't heard back, so answer the phone. And we will get you through this course. That's what our intention is, and that's what we are here for. Do not forget to take the end of course survey. It's very important. It does act as extra credit on your grade, so it will boost you quite a bit in the long run. And with that, Chef Suzanne, do you have any closing comments?
I do. I'd like to kind of piggyback on that. Don't be a stranger. Keep in touch with us while you're here. If you, like Chef said, if you have issues, you have questions, you have concerns, feel free to reach out. We can help all sorts of different ways. I also want you to keep me involved in what's going on. I like to travel. I like to go places. So you may not be in my town, but if you contact me one day and say, hey, I opened up a restaurant in Miami, I may be in Miami, and I might want to visit. So if you don't let us know, we can't support you. So keep us in the loop. Don't forget about us. Let us know what's going on. We're here.
We do something other than Miami. I'm thinking like Paris or maybe London or something.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to go with that. Sounds okay too.
Or how about this? I have a new concept. It's on a cruise ship.
Yeah, I mean, anybody jumping on a cruise ship, I'm all over that. But I have to get to a city to get on a cruise ship. So see, I travel to get to cruise ships.
Yes, it leaves from Venice. So that means you'll have to fly into Paris and.
I'm perfectly fine with that. That sounds great.
All these good things, ladies and gents. Thank you very much for a good block. We look forward to hearing from you, and have a great week, everybody. And take care.